The sedative part of nitrogen could have also been utilized by Baby in her plan to scoop Michael, firstly to keep him asleep at night 4.
You've been sleeping for quite a while.
Sure. Then to keep him compliant as they scooped him. And, as we know...
Sorry, is he stupid? What?
For quite a
while. What? Sorry, that I don't know what that thumbnail is.
They scooped him.
Okay, hold up.
Is he stupid?
Why didn't Michael just touch the sky? It is a good question. Is he stupid? Hey guys, and welcome to the grand finale, not of GTLive, but of our 4-part series covering the epic that is Dual Process Theories, Fnaf, We Solved Everything. We solved Fnaf and we're not kidding. Something like that. We solved Fnaf and we're not kidding. Man, we have done some long reactions to stuff in the past, but a hefty long video deserves a hefty long reaction, and that is what we have given this thing.
We truly have.
Like, this is longer than some of our playthroughs of the damn games. That's actually not true. I think no playthrough of a FNAF game has been less than 4 episodes, but, like, still, this is long.
It is. It is very, very long.
Like, we've done 2-parters of, like, John FNAF theories and stuff like that, but
yeah.
4 parts.
4 parts is a lot. It's aggressive, but also with this dual process theory, so much information is packed together, and every single sentence that they say has a purpose. Yeah. And so it's very hard to jump around and cut stuff.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, it's also very telling of the quality of it, right? I think the fact that we have been able to do this, and the fact that we have spent so long discussing this and analyzing it, shows the validity of a lot of the stuff that they're saying, or shows the quality of thought that went into a lot of these conclusions, right? Where, yeah, there are some weaknesses here and there. Yeah, there's some stretchy bits. I think they're taking some narrative license in some places. I think, you know, some things don't line up as cleanly as I would want them to, especially towards the back half of kind of what we were covering in episode 3 of this. But overall, right, I think a lot of the big swings that they've taken have landed. I think a lot of the narrative beats that they've covered have been really resonant, and specifically, like, they've really hinged this theory around 2 major reveals. One is the Cassidy is the crying child connection, which we've talked about a fair bit at this point, and feels pretty interesting, and something I think that should be delved into more, and kind of, you know, with more time, kind of see how it bleeds out into the rest of the dominoes that is this lore. 2 is where we left off last time, which is the cliffhanger of Michael Afton being the one you shouldn't have killed. And I pressed X to doubt that. I was skeptical. That the first big swing of Cassidy, I'm like, okay, I'm on board with. This one, I have a lot of reservations about. I think they have more of an uphill battle to convince me of that one than they did of Cassidy. I think Cassidy's been this enigma. I think they were right to call out a lot of the assumptions that the community has jumped to. I think a lot of the connections that they made are very interesting and compelling. Narratively, there feels like there's some satisfaction there. I do think it leaves a lot of kind of open ends as it regards to Golden Freddy specifically. I think the 5th missing child kind of ends up being this unsatisfying conclusion, which I talked about in the last episode. I think it leaves some open ends that aren't great, right? But I like it. Michael Afton being the vengeful spirit, we'll see. It feels like vengeful spirit is so closely connected to Golden Freddy in so many ways that that feels inescapable. We also see it present in the books, I think, in a lot of ways, unless they're going to prove me otherwise. It's also one of those things where, in the games, you know, Michael's death is a very strange thing. It happens very, very late in the franchise. You know, where he's presumably dying in the FNAF 6 pizza fire like everyone else, and he is willfully doing that. So for him to be the vengeful spirit who is tying Afton to the, like, forcing him to stay in this, like, purgatory state and holding onto him and having this, like, vehemence seems odd when we've seen it associated with Golden Freddy in so many other media. There's been all these references to him, this and that. So I am curious where they're going with it, but I am keeping an open mind. But as always, I will, be positive, but also skeptical. Like, I think that's how I approach a lot of theories, right? I stay positive about them. I like the connections that they're made. I get excited about these new conclusions, and I love opening the discussion to new concepts, new ideas that blow things wide open and get us to question a lot of this, because I think you need to every once in a while. That being said, I will continue to be critical of it, because that is my job, and I think, not just me, but the internet will do that sort of thing, and I want to make sure that I'm as honest with my reactions and honest with the theorizing as we can be. Before we kick this off, Ash, anything to preface?
Oh gosh, anything to preface? No, I mean, I'm looking at how much we have remaining, and I'm looking at, our time on this recording, and I'm gonna stay optimistic.
Great.
That we can make it. So putting out only those good vibes.
Only like hour 10, hour 15.
Okay.
And we're golden at that point. We will have only doubled the length of their video plus a little bit.
Yeah. So if we're talking about the burger, we have the extra patty and then
Yeah.
like a little bit of cheese.
Yeah, my little sliver of cheese, little slice of mayo and ketchup on there.
Yeah, a touch of that secret sauce.
Little secret sauce. Just like that. All right. So when last we left it off, I talked about that cliffhanger, but we had not finished the Aftons getting scooped, right? So this is where we left off, basically?
Yes.
Okay, let's start here.
Use their remnant to advance the fun times. He starts injecting the remnant of the missing children into the fun times, but in doing this, he fucks up again. When making
Classic
the toys, he
Afton.
still knew which parts went where.
Oh,
now
this
he's
is the
melting
one.
down all of
Okay,
the
this is the
children
part that
into
I was like,
one
oh, they're all
glob
mixed
and
up, but I
splitting it
feel
up
like
again,
it works better if
breaking
they're
the
one.
souls into something confused, angry, and even more hostile than before. But this time, they recognize him outside of the spring Bonnie suit. They remember him as the Fnaf 2 day guard, and they know who he is and what he's done. Baby's been injected with some of the remnant too, and she...
So, I guess and again, it's a bit hand-wavy in the way that they approach this, where they're like, oh, and then this time they just so happen to know him, because now they're mixed together. It feels a bit too hand-wavy, I think, for what is a big moment here and kind of like a big plot point of what is the logical progression here? And so for them to be like, oh yeah, and this time they just so happen to know him for reasons, right? It's odd. I feel like instead it should be they start knowing him and then they get confused as they get mixed up, right? That seems like the more logical progression, just from a narrative standpoint, regardless of the evidence and this and that. You're just looking at it from the cleanness of a narrative. They should know him, and then bit by bit they kind of lose that sense of self, or that kind of disappears, right? Which is one of the reasons why I think it is there probably was the missing children's incident with the original kids. They get relieved in happiest day, but then there's a new batch that get kind of remix kids' souls, remix those souls into something that's more confused, an entity that actually adheres to what Afton is telling them to do, which we see in the books, and I think we see in the games with sister location animatronics.
She has little to no memories of being Elizabeth.
Something happened when there was one. A little girl, standing by herself. I was no longer myself, and I stopped singing. I still hear her sometimes.
She knows Afton as the guy who's shocking her and forcing her to do things she doesn't want to do.
Sometimes I don't understand why people do the things that they do.
They're all hostile to him now, and it's not safe for him to be down there. But he still wants to fix Elizabeth. So, well, time to kill two birds with one stone. Or more aptly, kill one bird to resurrect another.
He goes to Michael. He goes to his son, his little precious baby boy that he totally 100% loves so much, and tells him that he can make up for the sins of his past. He can bring back Elizabeth, put her back together. All he has to do is go down there and fix her.
Okay, so this explains one of the critiques that I had last time, right? Which was I was like, hey, if Afton is not spring-locked, and if he is not in jail, why would he send Michael down into the bunker to put Elizabeth back together, right? Historically, and whenever I've approached the timelines and thought about the lore of this franchise, it feels like Afton has to be incapacitated in some way to merit Michael going into the bunker and following through on, like, hey, I did what you told me to do. I put her back together, right? And so for me, that was always, well, he was either convicted and put in jail and eventually gets out, and serves his time, or there's not enough evidence or whatever, or alternatively, he is spring-locked, trapped in a wall in the pizzeria, and Michael's like, well, he didn't show up for X number of days. I guess I got to go do the thing that he told me to do in an event that he doesn't show up, right? So it's weird for him to be a business owner. Hello, Mr. Afton, what have you done? I made these new animatronics. But like, we see that at the beginning of Sister Location. So it's weird for him to be like upstanding businessman who's not being chased by the law and who is perfectly capable and is like, hey kid, go down and fix this thing. This explains it a little bit, where he's like, well, it's dangerous for me to go there, so here you go. I could see that. That makes sense. I think it's a slightly weaker motivation to do it. I think it can function, but it's not as immediately compelling or like as necessary as some of the things that like literally incapacitate him and he is physically not able to do it. But it can work. It can work. I'm trying to think in the books if there's any indication of like Michael just does this thing when Afton is still around him and his presence is still around him. Not that I can think of. So there's nothing like physical evidence that I can like point to and say like this exists. It just feels like slightly weaker as an evidence point.
Go down there and get himself killed. He knows the Fun Times want to kill him. He knows they're going to mistake Michael for him. Michael's an adult now and he looks a lot like his dad. They'll attack Michael instead, and either he'll fix Elizabeth or die trying. Michael, of course, jumps at the chance.
So he's
Michael
intentionally
wants to
knowing that he's going to kill his kid? It's odd. Like, I know William doesn't like Michael for the crying child bite and all this and does all these experiments on him and kind of tortures him. Like, he is not a good dad in any way, shape, or form. But to go so far as like, oh, like I'm going to sacrifice him instead of me, and I know he's going to die down there. I know there's a high likelihood. That seems odd. It feels like an odd jump for a guy who has been so family-oriented. Serial killer, but he is family-oriented, right? Like, this whole thing started because he wanted to revive his dead son, his crying child, right? Elizabeth, he liked Elizabeth and actively warned her to not get scooped, and then she gets scooped by, or clawed, I guess. I always say scooped, but she gets clawed by Baby, right? He seems to care about his family enough that he wants to at least keep them alive. So for him to be like, oh yeah, I've kept you, Michael, alive this long, but just go down. It feels strange. I know he gets mad at Michael, but murderous intent of his son feels strange to me.
his dad, and more than that, he wants to believe that he can bring his sister back, bring both of his siblings back. He started this with his prank on Cassidy, and now he can fix it.
In the meantime, William goes back to the Fnaf location. And by meantime, I mean this could have happened literally any time between sending Michael off and Fnaf 3. He's ripped all the animatronics apart by now, but he could use the extra parts. And more importantly, it's time to finally go back for that Spring Bonnie suit. Why else would he be in that back room specifically? Golden Freddy's not there. Spring Bonnie is. What he doesn't expect is to see ghosts there. The MCI are mostly in the fun times, confused and lost. You know who isn't? Charlie. Charlie is still the puppet, and she's pissed. She was here just to protect the innocent, and William's taken everything from them again. Taken their lives apart, broken them when they had finally found themselves. Now, the question of what exactly happens in William's death minigame is vague. The MCI are in the fun times by now, so how could their ghosts be there?
See, again, this is why I feel like you need to, for that point, he's taking them apart. I do think he harvests their metal and I guess some of the souls, but then there are more souls there. That's why I wonder if he's taking apart the metal to harvest the soul. That's why I don't think he's melted it down yet. I feel like he's taking these apart to figure out, like, why are these animatronics moving in that moment? He's taking them apart, but the souls still exist in the pizzeria. They still exist outside of those. By taking them apart, he's released the souls, which then go on to kill him, right? Then all of a sudden he's like, oh wait, this is what it is. So let me, when I find my way back into the fold or whatever, when I'm able to be active again, and this is what the books show, I'm active again, let me kill a new batch of kids or kidnap a new batch of kids, cause them agony and trauma and this and that, infuse their souls into metal purposely this time, melt them together and infuse it into different animatronics to make them come to life and make the fun times that way. That feels, and that's why he starts capturing kids. That's why he builds these lures. That's why he starts doing all this stuff that is more intention. He switches from, wow, I discovered that there's haunted metal robots walking around. I need to study them. Let me take them apart and study them. Oh, wait, they killed me. Whoops. But now I come back, and it's like, now I know what's the problem. They're angry souls. I need to make more angry souls into the metal. Let me make the fun time. Let me experiment with more kids. Let me capture them. Let me steal them. Let me lure them, kill them, whatever, melt them down, and infuse them into a new generation of animatronics to see if I can bring them back. That, to me, makes more logical sense in that progression. And it also solves the problem I had earlier, which is if their souls are mixed up, that FNAF 3 minigame of a happiest or of his death minigame feels strange.
We know there in the fun times, as in the FNAF 6 Insanity ending, Henry talked specifically about how William took everything away from his victims again. We know William made the fun times because of the dialogue at the beginning of Sister Location, and that he was alive right before Sister Location because the animatronics recognized Michael as him.
This is the same person.
So how do these timelines cross? How are the ghosts there and not there? Is it possible he dies post-Sister Location after Ender escaped and split from Baby? Okay, but the MCI are just as confused within Molten Freddy as they are within the Fun Times. They might be somehow less aware by that point. How are they supposed to astral project over to Afton? To be honest, the correct answer is probably Cawthon didn't think this part through because he was making up the lore as he went along. LMAO. But from a Watsonian perspective, I see 4 options. 1, Charlie managed to get just enough of the ghosts in one place to piss off Afton. 2, Cassidy has already projected images of Fredbear to people before. Maybe he or Charlie are projecting those images to scare the fuck out of him. 3, these are the agony remnants of the kids, while only the remnant was taken away, which would be complicated. 4, Afton just snuffed some nightmare gas prior to his death and is hallucinating literally all of this. Nightmare gas sure is handy. But I do believe that Charlie is the 5th ghost that confronts William, not Cassidy. Cassidy is still wandering and lost. And at this point, he's shut off completely. Cut off from the world, hidden underground. He has nowhere to wander except his own mind.
See, and this gets to, again, I like that Cassidy is crying child. I like that. But this starts to get to what I think is the fundamental weakness of that theory. And one of the things that is, I think, frustrating about that theory is you start having to explain away why there are 5 spirits and there are 5 dead kids, but it can't be Cassidy, the crying child, as the one who's the vengeful spirit, the one that's causing him to jump into the suit, things like that, right? It feels like you're starting to have to exclude one of, if not the most important of the animatronics, Golden Freddy, from a lot of the things that he seems to be a part of, right? There's a group of 5, and then there's Charlie as the one that is different, right? And you have to come up with a lot of workarounds. So that's why, like I said, I want to take this theory and, you know, maybe talk about it with Tom and refine it into kind of like a, hey, let's do a game theory based around this, but see, like, what if Cassidy is the crying child? What dominoes does fall in the wake of that? Because I feel like there's probably some other solution that allows crying child to be Cassidy, but also there to be still an angry, vengeful spirit there somewhere who is driving this process along. We'll see. It's apparently Michael, which we're going to find out, but to say that that is Charlie in that moment feels odd when so much is tied to to that as a core 5.
Cassidy relives his fading memories over and over, walking between home and Fredbear's. Home and Fredbear's. Fredbear is everywhere. Fredbear is always watching. And at night, he wanders the halls of his father's bunker, hiding from monsters that aren't there, that he's already become. What I believe Didophobia coming home and Alone Together were trying to tell us was that FNAF 4 may have been Cassidy reliving the events leading up to his death. Susie goes through the same wandering phase, highly detailed. So does Travis. But instead of actually wandering, Cassidy is reliving, wandering the same halls like Rory, and always managing to, like Susie, return to Freddys, and then start all over again. His spirit is attached to the suit, hidden away, but his body is elsewhere, and he's stuck wandering, waiting to be found.
But the point is that at some point, William gets to FNAF and starts seeing ghosts. He begins freaking.
Right, because there too, what do we say? It's only the 4 that are taken apart, right? It's the original 4. It could be the puppet, I guess. This is the FNAF 1 location. And we know the puppet is we know that there are at least clues to suggest that the puppet was there at some point. The puppet is definitely in FNAF 2 location. And in FNAF 3, we know the puppet is there as well. We see physically the puppet being there. That would be the other thing that, you know, is maybe questionable, is we get hints, like there's posters on the walls that show like the puppet kind of in FNAF 1, but the puppet really doesn't show up in FNAF 2. So that's the other problem here, is this is the FNAF 1 location. We're not actually 100% sure that the puppet is there, right? So it's a tricky one.
He begins freaking out. He's been experimenting with spirits, but he hasn't seen any yet. He's seen moving animatronics, not fully realized specters of the children he murdered, especially Charlotte.
Hey!
Who's that speaking?
I don't know if you've done TV time, but you could do TV time with Fun Guy.
Okay.
He's for you. He's for all of us.
Sonic Boss Rush!
Oh, Sonic Boss Rush! Enjoy, bud. All right.
Awesome.
Let us commence.
Let us.
Cool.
He had no reason to kill her. It was fully in cold blood. and in that cold blood he created the puppet, who brought all of these killer robots to life. The ghosts are after him now, and he doesn't know what they can do. He gets into the Spring Bonnie suit still in the back room, hoping that it will either scare them into submission, or fool them into thinking he's one of them. But the Springlocks have gotten way worse over the years of neglect, and upon laughing once, William is springlocked and killed, left to bleed out slowly in an abandoned, locked back room, with the ghosts of his past staring down at him.
Michael, meanwhile, is having just about as fun of a time.
No pun intended.
These animatronics have put their heads together and gotten themselves a great old plan. Disembowel the guy who's hurting them, wear him as a skin suit, and get the hell out of the bunker that's electrocuting them over and over. They're like 7 years old. They don't know that bodies decay. This is a great idea to them.
Remember the multiple gas cans of nitrous oxide in sister location?
Yes.
There are some technical reasons it could be there. It's got many uses, including in mechanics, pumping it into pipes, using it in active machinery, but the fact that it is shown specifically in Ruin is raising several alarm bells that it is important. Mainly that it is being pumped directly into the room, as seen by the smoke Cassie runs through.
Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't call that out last time we did this, and they kind of called out the didophobia gas and this and that. The fact that it is specifically labeled as nitrogen gas, and the fact that, and I didn't know this, and so this is a new evidence point too, that it shows up in multiple places here, that's really fascinating. Why nitrogen? That's so oddly specific. I'd have to look it up. Because nitrous oxide is different than nitrogen gas. When I think of nitrogen, I think of liquid nitrogen. And liquid nitrogen makes me think of, you know, you are freezing things. You are cooling things down in a lot of ways. And so the prevalence of nitrogen gas, and specifically labeled nitrogen gas for all of this, is very suspicious. Yeah, nitrous oxide is... It's N2O. Organic compound, yeah, it's laughing gas, right? Whereas nitrogen, because it is labeled as nitrogen. It's a weird detail. It's really fascinating, though, that they went so far as to include a real gas rather than some, like, generic thing, right? So, liquid nitrogen. One last thing I do. So in sister location, you see what appear to be oxygen canisters, right? They are the thin, narrow, tall canisters. But in Ruin, the ones that they were showing earlier are these large tubs, which I think are more liquid canisters. Large canisters for gas. I guess you have that for say nitrogen gas. Right, like, because it's a gas, you don't need huge, like, industrial volumes of, like, you don't need, like, a massive steel tank. Large industrial, let's do industrial nitrogen, and this is just a quick industrial nitrogen gas cylinders, right? They're these guys, right? They're these things. I guess this is a little bit bigger. Yeah, so you do have a couple that are a little bit bigger. But for the most part, they're shown in these narrow, like, oxygen-esque canisters, which you do see in sister location. 100%, that is a very good call out. Whereas liquid, industrial, liquid, nitrogen, tank. Like, see, these are the big guys, right? Because it's a liquid and you need a large volume of it. Gases, you can compress down into really small quantities, really small volumes, right? Whereas liquid, you can't really compress it, so you need those large canisters. So it feels like whatever is in Ruin, at least, that those nitrogen tanks feel like they must be liquid nitrogen, which is then, again, for freezing things and cooling things down. I don't know. That doesn't mean I have an explanation for it. It just feels like it is a different property or a different medium of it, as opposed to it being more of the gas that's being pumped everywhere.
The question is, of course, why would they be pumping the gas into the scooping room? So, one of nitrogen's usage is food preservation. It keeps organic material fresh, which can include human bodies. Liquid nitrogen specifically was used in first cryogenic freezing and preservation in 1966.
Right, liquid
now,
nitrogen.
Again, why would they be pumping a body preservative in the scooping room? Were the Funheims planning to preserve Michael's body? Well, no, they took that body out of the scooper and planned to never return. Also, they didn't build the nitrogen pipes, they just kind of lived down there. So what was it for? Well, you know who William was actively trying to bring back specifically in the bunker? Elizabeth, who was trapped inside of Circus Baby, a possessed robot with a weird fascination with the scooping room.
I wonder, though, if you were a freshly opened pint of ice cream, how you would feel about something with that name. Thankfully, I don't think a freshly opened pint of ice cream feels anything at all.
We see Circus Baby's exoskeleton in Night 5, no body to be seen, and no signs of decay like the original animatronic.
Right, it is weird that you never see her. The way that Sister Location sets up Baby and pays her off is so weird. So strange. The fact that it's like, whoa, Baby's the star of the show, Baby's the star of the show, and then you don't see her until the final night, and she's slumped over as as literally an empty shell of a suit without an endosskeleton inside of it. So bizarre. And one of those like weird anticlimactic, like, really? This is Baby? It was just really odd. So it's a good detail to explore and call out. And I think John Fnaf actually did a really good job in his breakdown of Baby and the potential mimic chip in her arm. And, you know, is she a spring-lock suit? Is that really a thing? Like, I think he did a really awesome job breaking down a lot of details around that scene in one of his past theories to explain a lot of that oddity.
Is it possible that after Elizabeth was captured and mangled, William had to scoop Baby in order to get her out? Elizabeth could have, possibly, felt herself being scooped from the inside and out at the same time.
The scooper only hurts for a moment.
Right.
It's possible that the nitrogen was able to be pumped in order to preserve Elizabeth. It's entirely possible that her body was still down there in the bunker. We also know Scrap Baby had to return there at some point in order to repair herself, hence the parts of Baby exoskeleton and lights from the control room which weren't present in Ennard.
Sorry. This is, we also know Scrap Baby had to return there at some point in order to repair herself. That's why parts of the Baby exoskeleton and lights from the control room, which weren't present in Ennard. Yeah, so she escapes. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, Scrap Baby at some point had to have gone back down into the bunker to retrieve parts of Baby's exoskeleton. That makes sense. And the lights, sure. That's interesting. Because you don't really think about that, right? Like, when she escapes as Ennard, it's like, oh, she's just Ennard. Unless she is just cobbling it, yeah, it would be weird for her to cobble that together. Like, I could see a world where she's trying to put her body back together with whatever tools she has, and this is just the best that she's been able to do. But it is pretty exact to what Baby looked like, so she's just really good at mimicking it. I don't know. But no, she got went down.
If, say, she found herself the way Travis did in Alone Together, that could explain why she seems a bit more aware in FNAF 6. The sedative part of nitrogen could have also been utilized by Baby in her plan to scoop Michael, firstly to keep him asleep in Night 4.
You've been sleeping for quite a while.
Sure.
Then to keep him compliant as they scooped him.
And, as we know...
Sorry, is he stupid? What?
For quite a
What? Sorry, that I don't know what that thumbnail is.
They scooped him.
Okay, hold up.
Is he stupid?
Why didn't Michael just touch the sky? It is a good question. Is he stupid? I mean, you're not wrong. Who did this? Is that Ultra Ultinatium? Liltinatium? It's very small. Why didn't Michael just touch this? It's a great question. See, that's the lore that we need.
We just need reality checks on all the characters.
I love that. You know what? And also, that is a length of video that makes a lot of sense. 3 minutes. 3-minute theory on FNAF. Wow. Beautiful. No, you don't like a 4-hour reaction video? Come on. Get out of here. We could watch this one. We could turn it into a 6-parter, Ash.
That'd be great.
6 parts on Is He Stupid?
I'd love to dissect Michael Afton's intellect.
Yeah. Well, according to FNAF 1, we know that he can tell the difference between... But does he understand analogies? For that, we need to look at Sister Location.
There's also a clear skill issue in conserving things like energy, which implies that in terms of space and object permanence, there are some deficits there for sure.
Leaves something to be desired, for sure.
Yeah.
So, in total, if we use the official Mensa-approved IQ test, we would list Michael Afton's IQ as this. Therefore, he was not smart enough to avoid the scooper. But hey, there it is. That's it. Our little mini theory.
Beautiful.
I like it. It's already longer than the 3-minute video that that channel did, Ultimatum.
And, as we know, in the canon timeline, it works. Michael listens to Circus Baby, knowing his sister is in there. She doesn't recognize him, though, and just like the others, probably sees him as his father. And Michael gets clued into this. The animatronics, after 4 nights of putting their plan together and shoving Michael into Golden Freddy, come on, guys, finally lure Michael into the scooper. That day, they'd scooped themselves and killed any employees around. They then scooped Michael himself, ready to use him as their cool new skin suit to escape.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a while before any people realize they're gone. They've killed all the employees, and William's dead in a back room.
It does beg the question of, like, why didn't they scoop any of the other employees? Like, they killed the other employees. Like, we see 2 of them hanging there. They could have just killed them. They could have scooped them and had multiple skin suits. Why not?
True.
You know? Lol, why not? They wanted to... It is weird that the dead kids wanted to live inside the body of the guy they thought was the one that killed them. I hadn't thought that thought. I have thought about this franchise so many times, and I have thought through every moment of this franchise so many times. It is weird that is the first time I've had that thought.
Well, maybe it's symbolic of them wanting to get into the mind, get into the body, to be in his shoes, to understand what was really happening.
Could be.
And, you know, they never had that chance to grow up, right? To be an adult.
Wow.
So they are reclaiming what he took from them.
It's like Silence of the Lambs, man. He's trying to get into the skin
Exactly.
of their murderer. It's very weird. Weird
The bunker
one.
is hidden. Michael mentions in his phone call that he had to find the place, right where William said it would be. He was gonna realize...
That's another really interesting one, is that, like, the whole family didn't know that this place existed under their house. There are, which is always a detail that has just driven me nuts, is the fact that there is a whole underground, like, animatronic storage bunker / business that employees come to in and out of that the family doesn't know about and is still, at least in part, still operational under their house.
That's what I want a mini theory about.
It's weird, man.
I want to hear about the soundproofing of this bunker, because it must be astounding.
Sure.
The acoustics of this place, man.
Yep.
And then 2, in terms of an entrance.
Yep.
Okay, imagine this.
Please.
The employees, they dress up as a facade, as landscapers. And then, in a nearby bush that they look like, they're like, oh no, there's some brush underneath. I gotta pick that up. They go down on their knees to go and get it. And they crawl into the bunker.
Disappear down into the bunker.
Yes, exactly.
But the thing is, it even operates as a public entity. Like, people are aware of Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals.
Yeah, but there's a different entrance for that.
It's just weird, man.
Right?
According to the books, canonically speaking, it's behind a bookcase in William Afton's office. That's at least what they hint at.
Well, that's just one entrance.
I mean, no,
Again,
you're totally right. Yes, it is probably
there could be so many doors.
But at that point, too, it's like, why would you need a secret elevator entrance down if there's a public entrance?
You know, it's a good point.
Right? Like, what are you doing, man? You're just wasting your time.
Do you think the Aftons live on a really large hill?
They're like, I can't drive all the way down.
So you just take the elevator down.
I mean, you're saving
to
gas
the hill.
mileage.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Exactly. So they enter at the bottom of the hill, and they live atop the hill.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be seen going down the hill.
Put me in there, coach.
Yeah, there it
I
is.
got this.
You got this. I look forward to your 2-hour dissertation.
I'm going to start running right now.
Great. Begin.
What happened until it's too late.
Their plan works for about a week, until the body starts, decaying and vomits up the endoskeleton into the sewers, to skitter around like Pennywise until they get tired of each other's shit.
Then something unexpected happens. Something William didn't anticipate. Michael gets up. And let's talk about why. A lot of people chalk this up to the remnant injector on the scooper, but I really don't think that's it.
Are you
and they
sure?
Give him the metal.
I feel like that's pretty cut and dry. Okay.
Necessary to possess a corpse rather than a bot, at least for now, but the remnant itself isn't his own. It's someone else's remnant in him, not allowing him to possess himself.
Sure.
The remnants of Ennard's metal might help, but it really seems that the possession wasn't an accident. It was Michael himself. Michael forces himself back into his own decaying corpse out of sheer determination and sheer fury. Let's really look at Michael's message to his dad.
Really? They're just saying he's so angry that he exhumes his corpse-like body that has no endoskeleton, like, or has no real literal skeleton. His skeleton has been scooped out of his body.
Yeah. And I'll actually have you go back a few frames.
Sure.
All right, just you wait. Just you wait.
You want me to keep going back?
Yeah, keep going until we see that image on screen. That image of Michael with his fury. Yes, right there.
Yeah.
Look behind those houses and tell me what you see.
Bushes.
Hills.
I came all the way down the hill for this. Not again. You're telling me there was an elevator behind the bookcase the entire time that I could have just taken?
Boom.
No wonder he's mad.
Exactly.
I too would stand up with my gelatin-like legs that have no structural integrity because the bones have been scooped out of them.
He wasn't even wearing a Fitbit, so it's not like those steps are getting tracked. And if I
Wow.
didn't track the steps, did they even happen?
Yeah, if the steps aren't recorded by some AI managing your health and wellness, then
I know exactly. All that to say, the Aftons live on a hill.
wow, amazing.
Please proceed with the content.
We haven't gotten to part 7 yet.
No.
Fury. Let's really look at Michael's message to
Let's
his
look
dad.
at the message, shall we?
Father, it's me,
It's me,
Michael.
Michael.
I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be.
Michael has a very mature voice. He's very old at this point. He has a deep masculine voice.
They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. There's only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
The first part of the quote is said sadly, desperately. I did it. I did what you asked me to do. I did it well. I did what you wanted. Just like I did when I was a child at home trying to avoid your anger. I did it. Right where you said it would be. I should have made you proud. But then I realized who was there. They were all there. All the souls you killed. The ones I didn't think were inside this bunker. And they thought I was you. Michael says this with a lot of emphasis on you, hinting at a dark amusement followed by a scoff. He lets out a half laugh, half sigh, disdainful. This could also read as a cough, I guess, but our boy isn't breathing by this point, so I don't think he would need to. He then says she's free now. In saying that, it's become clear that despite Elizabeth and the Fun Times literally ripping him open, he doesn't seem to blame them for what's happened to him. He's not saying she escaped or she did this to me, only that she's free now.
I mean, that could be a warning, like she's free now.
He doesn't blame her. He is okay that his sister is free. What he's not okay with is the next thing he says. Something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. Then, there is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. The line is repeated for emphasis, and the second time it's said slower and with more venom. A lot of venom. On the Fnaf wiki, it's marked as ominous voice. It is not a simple self-invitation. It is a threat.
I've had people tell me he sounds confused in this section, but it does not sound like confusion to me. The only real confusion I can kind of hear is in something is wrong with me, but that is probably just on the grounds of I should be dead, but I'm not. What he's not confused about is what happened before the scooper.
Yeah, I mean, yes, their interpretation, I think, is largely correct of a lot of this, where, yeah, like, even in our theories, I forget if the timeline exactly lines up, but the idea that this is a moment, or this is one of the moments where Michael realizes that he has to go and clean up his dad's mess, the sins of his father, right? Which is one of the reasons why he goes and burns down, Fazbear Frights, right? He goes and, I originally thought it was why he was dismantling the animatronics in the previous locations, right? He was tracking down the things that his father had done and kind of burning them down, purging them, whatever. But him burning down Fazbear, I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you, right? I'm going to find you and make you pay for what you did here. And so that's why he burns down Fazbear Frights. It's why he shows up again in FNAF 6 to, again, stop his dad from doing things. Like, this is part of his personal mission. So, yeah, he is angry. I guess you could say he is vengeful.
Whoa.
Oh, man, did I get there with them?
You said the word.
I said the word. And then we're at the turning point of the chapter.
Oh, so they're about to say the word, too.
They're going to say the word.
Whoa.
He recounts in the call that he remembers what his father said
Let's
to
get
him,
hype in
the
the
mission
chat.
given to him, the
Vengeance
events
in the
leading up to
chat.
the scooper, the fact he was killed and entered escaped, and the fact he is still here. He is not confused on that. He is very, very certain. What is even more certain is that he is going to find William.
When he says that, it's not him simply telling his dad he's heading over to ask what the fuck was up with that bunker. He's not going over there to find Elizabeth with him. He's going over there to punish him. Because Michael is the one he should not have killed.
Has he killed him? Like that, again, to say that after...
Newsflash, asshole!
Great, I get to see this
The one you
so
should not have killed.
I'm excited.
The entire goddamn time! Then why would you say something? Because I hate you!
So, here's the thing. We discussed in part 3 how Cassidy is the name of the crying child, not a separate missing child. Does that make the crying child the vengeful spirit? It's possible. His dad is putting his spirit through a lot of shit and terrorizing quite a few people in his name. But the bits of evidence toward that pale in comparison to the idea of Michael Afton as the vengeful spirit.
I will say, so, and I said this last time at the very, very tail end of that, so it was like an hour and a half video, so you'd be excused if you didn't tune in that whole time. But basically, I'll repeat it. The scene that they just showed of a blonde boy ominously shutting a door on William Afton as he twitches off in the distance, right? In the movie, that is the kid who is in Golden Freddy, right? The fifth child, the vengeful spirit. And we see that repeated a lot throughout the movie where he seems to be the leader, he seems to be the angry one, and he lashes out at everyone. He also he has the kids lash out at Mike in the movie as well, right? But we absolutely see his vengeance targeted at William Afton. And so this is one of those reasons why I'm very skeptical or very curious to see where they're going to go with this one, because it does really there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Golden Freddy's spirit is the one that's angrily holding William Afton in purgatory, punishing him, wanting to make him really suffer for his sins. So let's see what they have to say. They have an uphill battle on this one, like I said earlier.
As the one William should not have killed. Sure, William may not have killed him directly. He may not have wielded the knife or the scooper or whatever. But the way Michael says it was right where you said it would be. They thought I was you, followed by a scoff. And just like you asked me to. This all tells me there is another thing he is certain of. That William knew this would happen.
William knew where the location was. And that he was sending Michael to his death. The animatronics wanted to kill him, and Michael looks just like him. William knew that if he went down, they would find a way to kill him. But he wanted Elizabeth put back together because she was a child he actually cared about. He did not care about Michael. He blamed him for killing Cassidy, and if again we take the Midnight Motorist minigame and questionably canon books into account, he was openly abusive towards him. So he decided just to trade Michael for Elizabeth.
Yeah, he kept him alive this whole time, though. Yeah. I get that he doesn't care about him, but he's also the last living son. That's a big deal.
Send him down to finish his work of putting Elizabeth together and let the animatronics do what they will.
Unless he's not his kid, which they might throw in there.
Whoa. I forgot about that point.
Which might, hey, they might throw that in because again, and the reason that isn't coming out of nowhere, right? That's coming out of the whole sister location. It's not my baby. He's not my baby, right? There's this repeated motif of a kid that you think is, again, if it repeats, I said this last time, if it repeats 2 or 3 times in this franchise across different media, probably something that you should pay attention to and might have some importance in the games, right? And so one of the things that you've seen repeated both in the games and in the movies and in the books is William having a kid that it may not be his own, right? You see like the Vlad Dracula in the cutscenes of Sister Location. He's not my baby. He's not my boy. You see in the original novel series that he like kidnaps Charlie and treats her almost like his own daughter in some weird, like that Elizabeth is kind of his daughter, but the Charlie bot is his daughter. So, and the kid that he kidnapped ends up being his daughter. I have a feeling you're probably going to see something like that happen with Garrett or Vanessa in the Fnaf movie, where he kidnaps a kid and then raises it as his own in some way. You have this repeated instance of Afton adopting people into his family that are not necessarily his direct family. So I could see this being like, I don't care about Michael because he's that kid that I kidnapped that one time or whatever. I don't know. But I keep waiting for that shoe to drop somewhere, and I don't know where it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, when you bring up the whole kidnapping thing, right, it still implies that even with these kids that he kidnaps and raises as his own, there is some kind of care there that is implied, or some sort of importance in that child, right?
Right.
So unless there was some sort of weird mix-up or something, like, oh, screw it, like my bloodline can't continue on anyway, so I would rather prioritize trying to bring back the soul of one of my kids who's actually biologically related to me. But also, like, if you're going off of the whole, like, bloodline going off of, and that's my more important thing, that can't really happen anyway. Or you're just placing more importance or emotional connection in the people or the souls that you are related to. Yeah. So it makes sense and it doesn't.
Yeah, It's again, in that FNAF-y way, it's like, oh, I could see a world where this works, but it also doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But it could.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. Anyway, let's see what they say.
Turns out their plan worked out just as William wanted. Michael was dead, Elizabeth was free. But Michael came back, and Michael was pissed. Man was pissed enough to possess himself. When he says, there is only one thing left for me to do now. That is the unfinished business tethering him as a ghost. He has one thing left to do on Earth, and it is giving his father some good old karma for sending him to a painful and violent death. His father had kept him entangled in this web of insanity for far too long. Michael was killed because of what his father had done, and because his father had sent him down there, knowing what was going to happen. Once again, William did not set off the scooper himself. That was Ennard, the conglomerate of Elizabeth and the other victims. But they killed Mike because they had been killed by William. After he killed them, they were confused and scared and killed Mike in order to escape their torment. They killed Mike thinking he was William, and thinking they were using their killer's skin to escape.
Which is
Does
weird.
this make them completely innocent?
Weird
No,
one.
not really. They killed at least 2 technicians, and God only knows what they were up to in between FNAF 5 and 6. But that does not mean Mike will blame them over William, when he knows William is the one who killed them. William is the one they intended to kill, and William is the one who knew all of this and still sent Mike down to die. He sent Mike down because he did not care about his son, and he was fine with him dying if it meant getting his precious Elizabeth back, or getting his experiments going again. Whatever motive you choose to read for him. He sent...
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of is if we're still holding on to a motive that has been thrown around in this community a lot, where it's like, Michael lifted Cassidy, who we're calling Cassidy in this theory realm, and was the primary reason that the bite of 83 happened, because he was the main mean bully that got him in that space, right? If William wanted vengeance for that, and was like, I have an idea, I'm going to wait decades for decades of time to pass, and then send you into a place where you will die, and I am separate from you, and I can't be tied to that so easily, okay, maybe I could get that, right? But it still feels odd with that being like the last child and then holding the grudge for that long, knowing that these creations had the capacity to spring lock and to hurt, injure, kill A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Like that stumps me a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like a weird elevation of the motivation. Like, he's already done a lot against this kid. He's tortured him using nerve gas, whatever method he used to create hallucinations and torture Mike through these nightmares and stuff. He's already gone through that process. But then he's using Mike. If you look at the way that they've structured this theory, so Mike's been tortured, but now he's like the obedient son, and he's helping his father cover up his sins, work as a security guard, dismantle the animatronics, all this stuff. So Mike has been a good boy for a while. And then he's like, oh, go down to the basement and die. Like, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
It feels like the punishment that that William wanted to give Mike was to torture him through the nightmares, and that is done. And now they're beyond that, and now they're working together. They're in cahoots. So then for years after him to be like, oh, and by the way, go down there and die. It is odd.
Right? Like, unless there was something that Mike encountered where it's like, you shouldn't have seen that. You know too much, which feels unlikely given that someone you'd want to be in, like, cahoots with and, you know, someone who has been groomed to be compliant with you. So that feels it feels contradictory, or the other alternative is that Michael has fulfilled his purpose or has done something larger, and now he needs to be disposed of for safety and security of William.
Sure.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Michael down into a bunker full of people he killed who wanted revenge on him, and in that way, he killed Mike. So Michael was killed by William's actions. He was angry enough to possess himself about that and track William down.
It's a minor point, the possess him, like, I'm not going to belabor it because it's a minor point, whether it's his own anger that brings him back to life or whether there's remnant that he just, like, passed into himself that allowed him to stand back up again and live on. Not 100% sure. I don't think it matters one way or the other. Just anger alone feels odd. Because I know agony is one of the core emotions of this franchise. There's remnant and there's agony, and agony is like the driving anger that pushes things forward. That's fine, but a lot of it has to do with agony infused into metal or other things. Agony infused into a battery, into an endoskeleton, into a plushie. Not just pure agony into yourself, right? It's odd. Especially when he doesn't have bones. Again, like he was scooped out, and so does he have bones at this point? Like,
I mean, what else would have gotten scooped?
Right? And so I feel like Ennard must have left some tubes in him, which so he has structure again, so he can walk. Neither here nor there.
That or just the organs and no bones. But
right.
That if it's grabbing exoskeletons,
right?
Or
If it's grabbing,
it's
grabbing skeletons, right? Endoskeletons, yeah.
He is the one William should not have killed.
I mean, there's a lot of people.
Another thing we know for certain is that he possessed himself for a long-ass time. Fnaf 3 is stated to be set 30 years after Freddy's closed. Sister location seems to occur pretty soon after that same closure. Michael walked around as a corpse for potentially decades, without giving up, without moving on, because he knew it was time to find his dad, stop what he was doing, and make him understand the pain he'd been put through. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a very determined and vengeful spirit to me. Honestly, he was a vengeful spirit in the games themselves before facing old man consequences and walking backwards into hell.
It is highly speculated and highly likely that Michael was the night guard in Fnaf 3.
Yes.
This would, retroactively, explain Springtrap's odd jump scare, looking for more like confused recognition than outward animosity.
It was weird. I mean, I think that was just a failed jump scare on Scott's part. Like, he was rushing through these games at that point. FNAF 3 was such like a, yeah, I gotta get something out in 2 months. Here you go. It's so goofy, man. Does not work. But yeah, like they called out, it retroactively explains this away. I think more so it's the fact that the place burns down and that is an intentional fire set is why Michael is the one.
And again, the logbook places Foxy, who's heavily associated with Michael, in specifically the FNAF 3 guard position. This would also imply that the fire in FNAF 3 was intentional, in an attempt to fully remove William from the equation. Mike really said, I'm gonna set my dad on fire, and then did it more than once like the icon he is.
But where he fails to kill William, Henry picks up. That's right, it's time for Henry to get his ass back in the story! Get on in here! How'd he get out of jail? Fuck if I know. I mean, it seems like he finally pieced together William was the killer, figured out about the possession stuff, and went on a tirade. The question is, did he escape? Serve his sentence? I don't think he served his sentence. Child abduction in Utah is 15 to life, and 5 kids went missing.
Hey, they looked it up.
Woo!
It only took me 3 more episodes to find out, but nailed it. Good for them. I like it.
He ain't getting out of there in time. Good behavior, maybe? I don't know enough about jail. I'm too good about evading the law. Maybe when William tore apart the animatronics, he put the bodies or bones somewhere they got found and identified.
Bones!
Honestly, what we think is most likely is that the cops finally tracked down that secret bunker, saw all the blood and guts, and were like, oh, yeah, it was William. Yeah. But the important thing is Henry gets out, and Henry gets to work.
He figures out about the murders, about the possessions, and that the animatronics are still out there and fucking around.
Whoa.
And after spending
Those
decades serving for a
mature
horrible
animatronics.
crime he didn't
They're
commit,
finding out,
knowing that is what kept him away from his daughter that fateful night, he knows it's time to end it.
So he opens a Freddys, probably under a fake name considering everything. But he takes that Fazbear package and shops out for a manager while he gets the trap ready. He turns the building into a labyrinth to trap any animatronics that make their way in there. He builds Lefty, or rebuilds him out of Carney, but that's a whole different story.
Ooh, good call out there. I think I like that that's just a passing mention. But yeah, the fact that Carney and Lefty are connected is really fascinating. Carney is the new guy from Help Wanted 2. Dating back to old school this is Fazbear Fall Fest 1970, which is fascinating. But yeah, the fact that this is the same old animatronic that Lefty eventually becomes, it's a cool detail. I like that. It kind of brings everything back together. I haven't looked into this theory, but I know it exists, and I even when I was playing the game, I recognized the similarities, again, with the hinged jaw, which is pretty, we did an episode all about that hinged jaw, and how that is indicative of Henry's early designs, that era of that design period. So to see Lefty coming back, very cool in that way.
Different story, solely to capture the puppet. Wherever the fuck Charlotte's been hiding. Honestly, if I had to guess, she may have been trying to find Cassidy's body all this time, to finish giving gifts and life to the last victim she knew of. As for the other animatronics, we know from a secret dialogue from ScottGames.com that Ennard split into Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy after they decided Elizabeth was kind of a freak and voted to kick her out of the hive mind.
You are crowding us.
Be quiet.
You can't tell us what to do anymore.
Yes, I can. You will do everything that I tell you to do.
We outnumber you.
That doesn't matter, dummy.
We found a way to eject you.
You would be lost without me.
Say goodbye to our friend.
The split, however, clearly fucked them up quite a bit, as Molten Freddy is nothing but a mess of limbs causing problems, and Scrap Baby has, like Michael before her, reverted to, okay, let's just do whatever Dad says. As Henry references her not remembering her own name, it's likely she's fallen into basic instincts. Attack things that move, keep self alive, make Daddy proud of me. It's been often speculated that she may have had this agenda the whole time, but really, I don't see why she'd kill the guy she thinks is her beloved dad. Ennard's whole plan was to stay in that body. She didn't know how decaying worked. But her dad's here now too. Say hi to Scrap Trap.
As we discussed in part 3, Scrap Trap definitely seems to have repaired himself from the FNAF-free fire using Fredbear's parts. I mean, it's his secret bunker. He goes down there only to find Fredbear is just as still and unmoving as he always thought it was. He never saw it move, never realized Cassidy was in there all along, and it infuriates him enough to finally rip apart the thing that killed his son and stick it to himself.
This thing makes me so mad. Let me put it on myself. No. Okay. Yeah. That's not the way that works. I think it's literally him just like repairing his body. And that could be fine. You know, he doesn't know. But the idea of like this, I'm so frustrated about this. I need this on my face. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Cassidy is in there, and he's been in that bunker for decades alone and undiscovered. The spirit inside has been wandering the same halls, the same memories, for years upon years, and can't put up a fight. Scrap Trap makes his way to the restaurant to continue his reign of terror that started with this suit, with putting Cassidy inside and letting him be broken further in hopes of putting him back together.
See, the interesting thing here is if Scrap Trap is indeed the fusion of Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie, that would actually be pretty compelling for why, you know, it's spirits. Anything is flexible. You can make anything happen. But the idea of the Golden Freddy spirit being the one that keeps Afton trapped in purgatory, it could be because they're attached to the same entity at that point, right? Like he fused the body of Golden Freddy onto himself, and in the process has invited the Golden Freddy spirit into him in some capacity, and now they're connected, and that has allowed Golden Freddy to keep him like tethered to this purgatory or this hell state, right? I don't think that's necessary. I don't think you necessarily need to connect that dot. I think that might be stretchy in a lot of ways, but it is a way to explain how that process happens without it just being like, oh, it's weird spiritual stuff, whatever.
Ruining so many lives in the process, including his, and including Michael's. And he's walking right into Michael and Henry's trap.
When Henry gives his final monologue, he implies that he's figured out who the guard was, and it was someone who he didn't expect. The guard found a job listing not intended for you. Henry didn't know what happened to Michael, and he didn't want to bring him into this, just hoping he'd moved on with his life. Unbeknownst to him, Michael was unable to, and so he found the Freddy's location with familiar animatronics in the back alley and Henry's voice on the tapes, and took the job knowing how it would end. Henry says he left a way for the guard to escape, but realized that he's where he wants to be. This means that Henry was not in communication with Michael, but figured out his intentions there pretty quick. And yes, Michael intended to follow Henry's plan and free all of them in a fire. But he wasn't going to let his dad go that easily. Sure, he'd let the other spirits leave. He let his and his dad's spirits leave. He'd been dying body for years, and Scrap Trap couldn't remain to cause any more harm. But Michael had spent decades living in the shadows, surviving off of one sole goal. He was a walking corpse fueled by the hatred of his father. He's been hunting him the whole time, and he's not letting him go now. So he follows his soul to hell and takes control. He tailors a torture just for him.
And if you ask, how can he do that? Same could be said for Cassidy. They're ghosts now, they can just do things, I guess.
Of the few things we know about the vengeful spirit and ultimate custom night, we know that it was a victim of Williams, and that he had been in the FNAF 6 fire.
He's here and always lucky. The one you shouldn't have killed. Greetings from the fire, and from the one you should not have killed.
He refers to Henry in the
Greetings from the fire, and that doesn't prove that that person was a part of the fire. The fire is greetings from the fire, like it's just hell. Or greetings, that's Jacko Chica, who is literally on fire. Greetings from the fire, I am literally the fire. Greetings from the fire, and also the one you shouldn't have killed. Like, I don't think that's implying that the person who is the one you should have killed was part of the FNAF 6 fire. I don't think that that's one and the same.
Third person, saying,
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
So what's their point there?
I will keep you here. But
person saying,
First to Henry in the third person, sure.
They burn us.
This means the spirit is not Henry.
Correct.
It's not Elizabeth, who was on her dad's side at the time she finally died for real. We also know it's not Charlotte.
I don't hate you, but you need to stay out of my way.
Whether she's talking to the player or the spirit running the hell is unclear, but stay out of my way is a hell of a thing to say to someone you yourself are keeping prisoner. Scratch Charlie.
The only other people in that fire were the molten MCI, about half the remains of Cassidy, and Michael himself. As we mentioned, it doesn't make narrative sense for the super powerful, vengeful spirit to be random kid we never talk about. Cassidy is a solid maybe. But the evidence for Michael? Ooh boy.
It doesn't track in a narrative sense for the big good to be some background character, but to have it be the son of the killer, the victim of his lifelong abuse who was killed brutally because of him, to have the spirit attacking the story's villain over and over be the character we have been playing as for several games, we were Michael for FNAF, if not all of them. If he was Fritz Smith, we played as him in FNAF.
If we were Michael for FNAF, why not all of them? I do like that. Like, I like that. I appreciate that one, because it does mean that Ultimate Custom Night is the only game where Michael doesn't appear, which, to be fair, is narratively unsatisfying. I like that. That's not really evidence, but I appreciate that call out, because I think it is cool to have the same character be like the protagonist across all of them. That would just be satisfying. Yes.
2. He could have been the guard in FNAF 3.
Yep.
He knows Nightmare Fredbear, so he went through FNAF 4 like we did. He was definitely the protag in 5 and 6. We've been Michael the whole time. So why stop now? Why not end the series with the man we began it with? Why not end Afton's reign by the hand of the one who, no matter how accidentally, started it?
Symmetry, my friend! Who the hell?
Michael checked several boxes.
That's awesome. What a great pull. That's so fun. Oh, that's great. Here's the thing. They did a thing that I would sometimes do in theories, which I appreciate, and again, I want to call out and I want to acknowledge, because I did it too, which is you use a lot of rhetorical questions to build up a thing that didn't have a lot of evidence to support it, but it sounds really good and feels really dramatic to do that reveal. And so to build to this, like, it couldn't have been this. What about this? Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Yes! I get it, but I still, like, you kind of brush away, like, oh, there's some evidence for Crying Child, but it's really this guy. He is vengeful, and I think there is something to be said for, like, he has anger against Afton. He wants to kill Afton just as much as anyone else. But I feel like a lot of people at this point in the series want to kill Afton. Let's see what else he's got to say, though.
Of what we know of the spirit. He was in the fire, he blames William for his death, he's pissed as hell, and he's determined enough to be the one that William should not have killed.
Hold up. He was in the fire, not a requirement, to be honest. I think that, like I said, I think that one voice line, you can interpret it that way, maybe, but I think it's more easy to interpret it a lot of other ways that doesn't imply the fire. He blames William for his death. That's literally everyone in this franchise. Everyone has died because of William to some extent. He's pissed, yep, and he's determined enough to be the one that William should not have killed. Like, both of and those last two are basically one and the same. He's mad and he shouldn't have been killed. Like, that's everyone. So it's not really a list of qualifiers that is so specific to Michael, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was something to be said on expanding on the whole point of, like, I feel like the first parts of this theory really built up the abuse that was put towards Michael. How he was kind of subdued and not really able to fight back against William specifically.
Yeah.
But he directed that towards Cassidy. He directed that towards, like,
yeah,
you know, externally, but not his father. And then was the subject of these experiments, and then was in cahoots, but never really felt like he's in control. Only after death could he be in control.
Sure.
And that could be where he actually finds his vengeance in.
Yeah.
That would be the storyline that I would pull and dive into.
That's narratively satisfying.
Yeah.
That's a good punch there. I like that. From an evidentiary standpoint,
right.
Here's the thing, and again, we have like 10 more minutes of this where it looks like they'll be able to, you know, maybe something they say will convince me. But even the fact that we see Michael pretty much as an adult, his voice sounds adult in the sister location cutscene. We see him walking down the street as an adult member of society, going to his job. But then in death, he reverts back to a child form. As like a little blonde kid. because at no point have we seen him that age, even. It's worth noting. The times that we have seen Michael are him as, like, teenage brother to crying child, right? So at the earliest that we ever see Michael in this franchise is as a teenager and up, right? And scale up. And so for him in this vengeful spirit moment to be this, like, kiddie face, this young face that looks to be about, like, I'd say maybe 10 years old, 11 years old, you know, to have him revert back to an era that is before we've ever seen him in the franchise, and a kid, and he's blonde, it looks like, when he's very clearly established to be brunette in the sister location cutscenes and stuff. It feels odd to me.
Yeah.
You know, I want to support this. I like big swings. Like I said, I support big swings. I think they've nailed one big swing. I am yet to be convinced of this second big swing, but we got 10 more Marcellus
have killed. As mentioned, that's not a morality assessment. It's a statement of this is the one that was going to come back and get you at the end. And he said, over and over, I am going to come find you.
Sure.
I'm going to come find you.
The only thing that doesn't 100% line up is the spirit being portrayed as a child.
Hey!
But even then, there's a ton of explanations.
Okay, great.
Either
they have a ton of explanations.
Woo!
Look, there it is.
In Cassidy's likeness as part of his taunt.
That's weird. Like that, again, that's very hand-wavy. That's very stretchy. That's like, well, it's Cassidy, but he's using Cassidy's likeness as a taunt. That's real. Like, the Occam's razor there is, then why is it not, it's just Cassidy? Oh, it's this other thing. You know, it's weird, you know?
Or he's reverted into his younger self. The little boy who got abused and neglected and locked into nightmares.
Right,
The
but we
little
don't
boy
see
who
him as a
died with
little boy.
Cassidy. Now think of important lines in Ultimate Custom Night.
I've been looking for you, and now I will never let you go.
You knew I'd get you eventually.
I'm going to come find you.
When I'm here, you play by my rules. This time.
What?
No, if we're talking about kids, just like the verbiage choice of you play by my rules, where it's like when you're a kid and you're under your parents' house, you know, that kind of line is thrown at you all the time. Like, my house, my rules.
Yeah.
And seeing that subversion, like that switch,
Mhm.
I could see that being like a softer point, at least narrative-based point.
Really interesting that Nightmare Fredbear uses the phrase put you back together, something Michael quoted directly back to his father.
Let me put you back together, then take you apart all over again.
The spirit is someone who's heard William use this phrase.
But Cassidy was the one who was told it.
That's the thing, right? Like, again, Occam's razor says it was literally Cassidy is the one who heard it, right? It was this character who heard it. So, yes, Mike could have been it, but it stands more to reason that it would have been Cassidy, if Cassidy is in fact Golden Freddy here.
Speaking of the nightmares, most of them have lines relating to, guess what? I'm real this time. Almost like the spirit is someone who'd seen the monsters back when they weren't real. But they're real now, and just for Will.
I assure you, I am very real.
I am given flesh to be your tormentor.
This time, there is more than an illusion to fear.
But most importantly, Nightbear, overlaid with the voice of the vengeful spirit itself, says,
This is how it feels, and you get to experience it over and over and over again, forever. I will never let you leave.
This one is definitely attributed to the spirit, as its voice is overlaid.
Yeah.
What is it exactly? Death? No, William knows how it felt to die. He got killed by the Springlocks. He doesn't need a personal hell to tell him that. Instead, he needs to be told how it felt to play Fnaf. Michael
You need to play this game, and you will suffer. You need to figure out what it's like to play FNAF, Dad. You sit there and you play FNAF, Dad. You're the worst. And I think it is. I think it's referencing like death or again torture, being ripped apart. You know, being mutilated or stuck in this purgatory where you die over and over again. I think that's what it is.
went through at least 3 of the 6 games, most likely all 6, over and over and over again. The vengeful spirit knows how it feels to be in this office. The MCI wouldn't know that. Charlotte wouldn't know that. Michael would. because Michael was almost always the main character. The entire series has been him chasing his father, and now his father has to deal with what he made Michael deal with.
But why, you ask? Wouldn't he just let William's soul pass on? Surely, no, he'd just go to hell. That's eternal torment already. Sure, yeah, let's assume that. But Michael doesn't just want William to go to hell. He wants to torture him himself. He's been hunting him for decades, and he wants his vengeance.
I mean, that's true. That is why he is a vengeful spirit. But again, that could apply to anyone. That could apply to him. That could apply to any of the myriad victims that are the result of his actions. It could relate to the one kid who is Golden Freddy, or under your theory, it wouldn't be Crying Child. I will say that. It wouldn't be Cassidy in that case, because he wouldn't have that level of animosity, I would say, towards his dad. That would be a weird one. But, you know, it goes to the question of, like, can Crying Child be Cassidy, but also can there be a fifth dead kid in Missing Children's incident, you know? It's a question.
Revenge is a funny emotion. It is anger that demands an outlet. When you've selected an outlet and that outlet is not available to you, the pain does not go away. Michael's been looking for his outlet for a while, and once he has it, he will not let him go. He's going to make him suffer, as his father made him suffer through his entire life and afterlife. He didn't get to be the one to burn his father, so he's going to be here to burn him over and over and over again. Which is what leads to the Old Man Consequences scene. If you select nothing but Old Man Consequences in Ultimate Custom Night, you get a cutscene referencing Fnaf World, in which your pixelated self approaches Old Man Consequences fishing at the lake. The man says,
"Come and sit with me for a while.
If you do, he says,
Leave the demon to his demons. Rest your own soul. There is nothing else."
Also note that if you speed up the background audio, you can hear screaming, which sounds an awful lot like Henry, Michael, help. There's been theories that Old Man Consequences is Henry. They speak in a similar manner with similar sentence structures and vocabulary.
In general, with the flip side under account, and seeing how these motifs are so closely associated with Henry, I have a hunch that Henry is Old Man Consequences.
And if we go with Raito's theory that Fnaf World is Charlie's way of helping the children pass on, it would make sense for him to help her. His daughter won't move on until everyone can, so he is there to help her. And he will sit at the lake and wait for Michael, a child he once knew, to tell him to rest like the rest of them. Which would imply that when William is screaming for help in the cutscene, he is screaming to the two people who are actually there. The two people in the cutscene. Henry, the Old Man Consequences, and Michael, the Vengeful Spirit.
I think it's I think it's him calling out to the people who would still be like I think the idea of Henry as Old Man Consequences is weird. I think that's just looking to draw connections in places where you don't need. I think Old Man Consequences represents something beyond itself. You know, that's the one character that I haven't necessarily been eager to attach to like another character in the franchise. It's like, oh, he's just the entity of like, these are the consequences of your actions. He is fate. He is not God, but he is fate. He is literally the guy who is a neutral observer of this world and is passing a neutral judgment, but helping people through it, right? Letting them know like, this is it. Here it is. And so instead, William is calling out to the two people who are still potentially there, you know, to help him, or still potentially friendlies to him. You know, Henry, Mike, the two people who potentially work together to, like, they're the last two people who got him into that final mess, you know, trapped him in that place, and the place is burning, and so he's crying out, like, Henry, Mike, you are the two people who are here burning me to death, like, let me out, right? I don't think it's, oh, because he is there. It would also be weird if the vengeful spirit is Michael Afton. Why would he be calling out to Mike when he is the one who should not have killed? Like, you would know that connection exists, right? I think it would just be strange.
Anyway, what happens when you speak to Old Man Consequences? Well, the game will crash. Because that's the thing about revenge. Once you get it, it doesn't stop the anger. It does not stop the pain. Michael is in an eternal cycle, able to take out his anger on his father as much as he wants for as long as he wants, over and over. But it is not soothing his soul. It is not quelling 30 years of anger, 40 years of anger, however long he's been angry. It is not giving his soul the rest he needs. William will be tormented with or without him, and he needs to move on from his father's hell. But Michael does not think he deserves to. Let's look at one of Withered Bonnie's lines.
Why is this new person? Is it me, or is it you? Perhaps it's us.
Let us not forget one thing.
Michael did help kill the crying child, and the number that must have done on his mental health is exponential. We know from the epilogue of the game how devastated he was.
When William reached out to him to bring Elizabeth back, as we mentioned, a possibility of redemption for Cassidy may have been the dangling carrot in front of him.
One of the things that I question, and just in general for this whole section, they're using all the voice lines from all the animatronics in Ultimate Custom Night, but very clearly there are certain voice lines that are directly coming from the one you shouldn't have killed. They call out the fact that there's the mediocre melodies. Each of them has a line that is overlaid with the voice of the one you shouldn't have killed, this kind of whispered ethereal voice that is there, that is directly speaking of like, I am mad about this, you are here because of me kind of thing. So we hear the voice of him. I don't think all the other animatronic lines are coming from his voice, right? You hear Charlie say, I am very much aware all the other ones are like animals. Like, she is speaking on behalf of herself, right? When Music Man says, like, you play by my rules now, I don't think that's the vengeful spirit talking through the lens of the Music Man. I think that is literally the Music Man or whatever soul was inside of Music Man talking in that moment. When Bonnie is like, what is this prison? I don't know what this is. Why am I here? Like, I think that is literally like whatever spirit was it, Jeremy, whatever, inside the Bonnie figure saying that in a lot of cases. It would be weird for all of them to be the collective voice of the one you shouldn't have killed, but not all of them, because like Charlie isn't, and certain ones very clearly are themselves and established characters. So then, and very clearly the game establishes that there are some that are directly the vengeful spirit talking. But then to broaden that out to all of the voice lines in those moments, I don't necessarily agree with that interpretation of those clues,
But it didn't bring back his siblings. It just caused more problems, and caused Michael to shamble around as a zombie for decades. There's probably some part of him that thinks he deserves this as much as William does. It may have ultimately been William's fault. Michael may have acted out because of how William treated his children. He may have been the one to create Fredbear's Diner, but Michael was the one who shoved his brother into a bear's mouth. Michael dragged his dad to hell and then trapped himself there, supposedly in order to torment him over and over again. But instead, he's tormenting himself over and over, because he still blames himself and is punishing himself for what he did. Is it me trapped, or is it you, he asks. Perhaps it's us both. This is a torment cycle for both of them. William is obviously getting the shit beaten out of his soul, but Michael isn't doing too hot either. That's why Old Man Consequences tells him to leave William and rest his own soul. Michael doesn't think he deserves to, which is why he won't.
The theme music of Ultimate Custom Night, or at least the menu music, is entitled Isoptrophobia, which is a fear of mirrors and reflections.
That's interesting. That's a cool detail.
Could this be referring to Michael fearing looking in the mirror and seeing his father, or seeing a robot or corpse instead? Or could this be referring to William refusing to reflect on himself, on the horrible things he's done?
Yeah, I think
this is the theme of the entire game. It's got to be important that it's named to this. William's hell is seeing all his crimes and mistakes reflected back at him. He sees the monster he's become. He sees himself as Springtrap and Scraptrap. He sees his murders, he sees his failures, and when he completes 50-20 mode, he sees the moment he killed the son he promised to put back together. That scene of Fred...
Yeah, see that, and that's what I was gonna say. Is when you complete 50-20 mode, you see the twitching of Golden Freddy. His death. I don't know. Like that's a big assumption to say. Like, oh, he put his son back in there, and now he's twitching. Because also, if he's comatose, as they say, like he's comatose, they put him in there. Would he be twitching in that moment? I don't think so. It does feel weird that it's an angry spirit that is being kept alive, right? And it's the one that has ignored it's ignored Old Man Consequences advice of leave the demon to its demons. It's like, no, I still need to get him. I still need to get him. He's still rip-roaring to go, right? He's still like, I need to trap him here. That vengefulness doesn't go away. It's something that we see in the books too, where in the patient in room 1280 or whatever, like vengeful spirit continues to keep him there and is mad until the whole thing explodes, So
Fredbear twitching is not saying that Golden Freddy is the spirit. It's showing us the spring-locking of Cassidy, and that's not all it is. When William completes 50-20 mode, he is greeted with the vision of the worst mistake of his life. And what's the best/worst part? Michael is showing this to him. Michael, who had done everything he said in life. And why? Because he killed Cassidy. In a way, he did, of course, but Cassidy didn't die from the bite. He died from what William did to him after. William was the one who killed Cassidy and had gaslit Michael into wallowing in guilt for his entire life. And in finding out his father was the one who killed Cassidy, Michael was able to realize that his father was behind everything else.
All this to say, this doesn't mean that Michael is going to stay in hell forever. That's a pretty downer ending for our protagonist.
This is a franchise full of downer endings. just so we're all aware, I had this realization not too long ago too, where like every game has kind of a negative ending. Like basically every canon ending is pretty much a bummer except for like FNAF 3 and FNAF 6. You know, sister location, it's like, haha, you got scooped. Help wanted is, haha, you got your brain infected with a virus and now you're trapped in your own mind and Glitch Trap has taken over your body. FNAF Ruin is, haha, small girl, you tried to help your friend, but too bad you're now stuck in the basement with the murder bot as your elevator crashes and your friend betrays you. Like, all of them suck. Really. Like, for the most part, the endings of these games are not happy endings. Even in FNAF 1 and 2, haha, congratulations, you survived a week and got underpaid for your services. Capitalism, yeehaw! Like, these are not happy ending games in general across the board, period.
We have to remember that Old Man Consequences is there too. He tells Michael to leave and rest. He has the possibility to do so. He can do so. And one day he may. And with Golden Freddy telling him over and over that it's me, reaching out to him again and again, I think his little brother may be the one to bring him to peace, to ease his soul and put him to rest.
And narratively, doesn't it feel complete to have the same protagonist in the first and last of the game of the original timeline?
I think
speaking again of narrative significance, what is the point of Michael? What's the payoff for I'm going to come find you if he just lets William go at the end via Henry's hand? Why introduce him, imply he's the main character of most of the games, and then just kill him immediately? The reason is that Michael is the through line of all of these games. We start these games as Michael, we end it as Michael. Just as all of this started with Michael and William's sins against Cassidy, and ended with their hell for each other.
It would be, again, I like that from the narrative parallelism it provides. I do think that the idea of he doesn't leave Michael, or he doesn't leave William alone, right? He stays there to make sure he dies in FNAF 6. Really, like, Michael's work is done at that point in a lot of ways. And so the narrative arc then becomes it's William versus the kids that he's killed, and one kid in particular that he's killed, you know, and so it's him facing up against his own sins. Like, Michael's journey is done because he did what he had to do, which was he found his dad and brought him to justice. You know, he can't be responsible for the spiritual half of that. The Charlie's arc is done because Charlie did find spirits and relieve them in a lot of ways. So to me, it's really William versus his true opponent, which are his first victims, the kids that he killed, right? Exemplified by the main one, which would have been Golden Freddy, who we see in the final moment of that game. Feels stronger to me.
As for the other spirits, William is, as deserved, suffering eternally for his crimes against humanity. I really want to draw attention, though, to the Sisyphean imagery of Ultimate Custom Night here.
It's a great game.
The original Tale of Sisyphus has him drawing the ire of the gods for killing his guests, but then evading death by locking it in a chest. Even after death escapes the chest, Sisyphus manages to escape once more, but he can't run forever, and when he finally falls to the underworld, he is punished by doing the same task over and over. Sisyphus really be playing 50-20 mode every night, huh?
One must imagine Sisyphus as a yellow rabbit.
And for the children, I mentioned FNAF World earlier,
awesome.
And that really does seem to be the key to freeing the other kids. When Charlotte says, you need to stay out of my way, it's because she's working on something she can't have angry spirits messing with. What she's working on is freeing the kids, and specifically, Cassidy's spirit. The secret minigames you are meant to complete in FNAF World are very clearly setting up the minigames of FNAF 3. The minigames which unlock the happiest day, in which Golden Freddy's spirit gets to have a birthday party. These minigames may or may not be diegetic, but they show how Charlie prepared to set Cassidy free. She collected the other children's souls, shepherding them back after the fire freed them from Ennard but kept them lost.
Yep.
Then they all, together, worked to finally free Cassidy. In We Solved the Ghosts of Freddys, Rytos brings up that the end of FNAF World involves the player going into the middle of the woods, and then the game suddenly ending. Their interpretation is that it's not just any spot in the woods. It's the crying child's unmarked grave. All of FNAF World was finally finding Cassidy's body and allowing him to rest. They find his body, they open the chest, and they give him a party. The party was for you.
The player in FNAF World is probably Cassidy, being shepherded by the images of Fredbear and promises of being put back together. And it works. Though it didn't happen during the FNAF 3 fire, the happiest day either did or will happen. Charlotte brought all the kids together for a final celebration, to give Cassidy the birthday he was denied, and then the balloons drift into the wind, and the spirits move on. All of the kids are safe. So Charlie is safe now too, and with her father. The only one left to move on is Michael, and that's where we leave the pre-Steel Wool story, with the question of whether he will give up his useless pursuit of revenge or fall deeper into the rabbit hole. It ends with a hand extended to Michael, and the question of whether or not he will take it.
But that's not where FNAF's story ends.
Oh no!
Oh no!
We got more games to merchandise, y'all!
Help Wanted is about to drop and some wild shit's gonna go down.
But that'll be for another video, or videos. God, probably so many videos.
So many more videos!
With a lot more wild speculation, and a lot less this all fits together like a puzzle. But we
Gregory
do
ain't a robot.
No! No! Oh! Well, that's okay, because Michael's not the vengeful spirit. So I feel like we're even now.
Spade for spade.
Yeah, spade for spade. We see each other, 1 for 1. Good. I look forward to the 90-minute dissertation on Gregory not being a robot. No, I think this feels like a good place to wrap it. This was fantastic. Thank you for joining us on 4 episodes of us doing a deep dive into this. Deep dive into this. Yeah, like I alluded to, and I think I made it pretty darn clear. I like the Cassidy stuff. I don't think it really provides the most satisfying conclusion to Golden Freddy. I feel like I want to think through things, and you know, maybe Tom will throw together a game theory about this, but like, what would it mean for Cassidy to be the crying child? I think there's some interesting things. I don't know if it leaves you with Golden Freddy in any way, and that feels like a big lingering thread. I don't love their explanation of like, well, yeah, William just took him out of the hospital and threw the comatose kid in there at some point when he thought he kind of understood Remnant, but really didn't. Whoops, and that's his biggest regret, or whatever. It's just odd, you know? So I don't necessarily agree with that one. But I do like Cassidy as crying child. I think that has a lot of merit to explore. Michael as vengeful spirit, not convinced. Ash, you convinced?
Not all the way, but there's from a narrative perspective, I like it.
Oh yeah, from a narrative perspective, I think it is interesting. I think that there are definitely parallels that you could draw there with how angry he is, things like that. The idea of him being in every game, I think, is really satisfying and is a nice conclusion to that. It's just there's so many candidates and the information is so vague and so much of it points to Golden Freddy that it does feel odd to pull in Michael just because he is mad and has followed him for a long time. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, it's like, I appreciate the acknowledgement that Mr. Scott Cawthon was probably making a lot of this up as he went.
Absolutely.
So this feels like a really strong cleanup attempt. For
like the sweep.
Like we're getting the mops, we're getting the brooms. I'm plugging in the vacuum right now.
Arrange it. You're arranging the furniture, arranging the tchotchkes on the shelves, and you're trying to group them. You know, they're from a couple different vacations, and you're trying to group them thematically, but some are just like, why'd we get this one? Yeah, I guess it'll go up there too.
Yeah, so from that angle, I really like this.
Yeah.
At least this is one of the headcanons that I'm going to be looking at things through
Yeah.
when I'm looking at FNAF content, or like Matt said in one of the previous videos, as I navigate my way through all of the FNAF books.
Yeah, you got how many books in are you at this point, Ash?
Like 2.
Got a lot more to go,
yeah,
friendo.
It's not great.
So if you'll excuse me then, I guess we should wrap this one up. Ash should go and read some FNAF books.
Yep.
And I will go talk to Tom about the ramifications of Cassidy being crying child.
Oh, he's almost assuredly asleep right now.
Well, then it's time he wakes up.
Wake up, Tom.
Both out of his slumber and out of the belief that crying child has not been named.
Wake up.
Wake up, Tom. This is important.
Wake up, Tom. I need all y'all to go to the comments of the latest game theory and tell him to wake up.
Yeah, give him some clap emojis and wake up, Tom. There it is. And he'll be so confused and distressed by what's happening.
Yeah,
and that will be delightful for us. So anyway, that is it today. Dual process theory. Again, congratulations on putting together a really good first theory out of the gate. Really, really solid, both from the production side, from the thoughtfulness side. You know, and also in general for putting yourself out there, right? For as critical as we are, for as, you know, as we try to play devil's advocate or push against some of the ideas, at the end of the day, like, right, I understand it is tough to put a collection of ideas out there for the scrutiny of people, you know, and for other people to look at, tear apart, and it's a lot easier to tear them apart than put them together, especially for this franchise where there are, like you acknowledge, and I think we all can collectively agree, there are no real satisfying conclusions, and things just sometimes don't fit, and you're doing their best to kind of clean up the mess that Scott has left for us. So, good on you to put this out there. This was fantastic. I look forward to whenever you decide to do your 5 hours on the Arc 2 of this franchise, which will be super cool. Ash, how do we do on time?
Actually, really well. We're at around an hour 30.
Nice, beautiful thing. So we've achieved our goal, you've achieved your goal, and now Ash is going to read some books. But hey, remember guys, it wasn't a live stream, but it was a video for you. See ya!